Hey gang, I'm RuthAnn. Chris could not make it. She is in Houston for a meetup for Come to Us and all that kind of stuff. So we have the amazing...
Hey, I'm Marcus Berry.
He's going to be with us today. We just went to go see Pet Sematary, the new movie of it. I do not remember the old school movie of it, but this guy
That's because you did not see it.
I did see it.
You had not seen the original Pet Sematary.
No, I hadn't seen it when I was a child.
So I think this was a clean, you're coming in cold. You don't know about a remake, you don't know about the original. This was your first, I think this was your first Pet Sematary experience.
Pretty much.
If I'm being honest. If the questions that you asked me throughout the screening were any indicator, this was the first time you had come in contact with the material that is Pet Sematary. We also
saw it when I was a tiny child and remember nothing other than if you bury something, it comes back to life.
I've never been more skeptical of a statement in my entire life. I think this was the first time you'd come in contact with Pet Sematary. Also, so we went to go see it. This is in the third week of the film's release.
Cheers.
Cheers. This was in the third week of the film's release, and we went to an afternoon screening.
By afternoon, we saw it at 6 p.m.?
It was a little earlier than that, but we were also the only people in the theater.
This is the first time ever I have been the only person in the theater with one other person. I've been where it's a smattering of people, but this was my first experience, and it was very liberating because we could talk, and I knew he had seen it before because obviously he worked on it.
There was a lot of out loud talking. There were a lot of questions. What tipped me off to the fact that this was your first Pet Sematary experience is at one point you were like, I hope the child doesn't die. And that's pretty much the one thing that Pet Sematary is known for.
But the smallest one, what's weird is that I was very defensive of the little boy. I knew the little girl was done for.
Which it's a really good thing that we saw the remake and not the original, because in the original, the little boy is the one who's hit by the truck and comes back and kills everybody. And in this new version, it's the older daughter. Okay. So that was actually the twist.
I'm gonna tell you the small amount of the original that I remember, because I grew up in a very small town in Vermont, but have a lot of family in Maine. So all of the Stephen King movies, when it comes to Maine, I'm very connected to. But what I remember is that with the whole Pet Sematary thing and the burying and because we had our own Pet Sematary. I mean, nothing came back to life, but I'm just saying we had a space on our land that was where we buried.
And it's a well-known fact that you grew up on cursed land. The ground was sour. Everyone knows that who watches the show and tunes in for that. So.
For all of you that are concerned the way I pronounce buried, that is how New Englanders actually say it.
Also, okay, so this movie stars Jason Clarke.
Yes.
Great actor.
Amazing.
And John Lithgow, who is an incredible actor.
John Lithgow is so good in this movie. I mean, he's good in everything, but he's so good.
All that being said, tell them your one note.
Okay,
for John Lithgow. We're watching this movie with John Lithgow turning in just a tour de force, nuanced performance, one of the greatest actors in the world of all time.
Perfect.
And you lean over to me and you say, what?
And I said, I know he is not a Maine, New Englander, because he does not have the accent. Because I grew up with, all my family's from Maine, all that kind of stuff, and he says buried instead of buried. And also a bunch of other, little nuanced stuff. It's really stupid.
So your note for John Lithgow was your performance is bullshit.
Total bullshit, sir. No. God, no.
You've done nothing to prepare. You have 0%. No future in this business.
Oh, yeah. You're done, sir. You obviously do not know how to act.
Sure.
No. I love that man. He did such an amazing job because...
This is the heavy lifting for the whole movie.
Heavy lifting. But character-wise and script-wise, the first thing you lead with is, hey, by the way, when you bury somebody in this side, they become evil and they're awful, just like my wife and my other, he never even, led with that. He's like, you should just do this with no warning.
I also feel like now you're doubling down on the bury thing. I feel like now that you said that, now you're hitting bury, really hard.
Well, no.
Harder than you would in life.
Hold on. You know that I only say bury, right?
On this show?
No,
on this episode?
No, I'm saying in real life, I only say bury.
Listen, we all know that you're from Vermont.
No.
It's fine.
No,
Like,
hold
you
on.
don't have to
Hold on, everybody.
dress it up. It doesn't have to be a
No,
big production.
it's
fine.
not.
You can just be from Vermont. I'm from the East Coast as well. I don't casually say, like, I'm from Maryland. I don't casually say things like chowder.
No,
well, that's more Massachusetts.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
There is a thing.
I don't talk about crabs all the time. I'm from Maryland. We ate crabs there.
Name one time I've said bury any other way, because I only say bury, and like my father is the only other person I know that says it this way, and I obviously learned it from him. But I have a thing. You bury something. It's spelled with a U, people.
I can't.
It's spelled with a U, people.
I can't comment on that because I've really only paid attention to it tonight after you adjusted Mr. Lithgow. Where like you would have been on set and you would have been like, John, it was great. I loved it.
Great.
One small note.
Just
people from New England
just a little thing.
say bury and not bury, and you would have destroyed his performance. You would have pulled him out of it, and he would have been self-conscious about it.
I can't say you bury it. That doesn't make sense. You bury it. It's a burial. You bury things. My dad, who's watching this, appreciates me because it's spelled with a U. It's buried. You bury things. It's a burial.
Okay.
Anyways.
Fair enough. Moving on.
The internet will not move on for this. I know this. But all right. So this movie, I don't remember. The only thing I remember from the original is just like the whole like. I just remember pets come back to life and they buried somebody else and they came back to life. Like that's all I remember of the original. It's been before I have like proper memories of a movie. Like that's why it feels like this is the first time me watching anything Pet Sematary related. This movie though, what would you give it in a star rating?
Here's the thing. I think this movie's better than the original movie, which is I know is a controversial take for horror fans because I know people really love Mary Lambert's original movie,
and they love that kind of cult classic, like kind of dirty, like people love that, right?
Sure. Like I think it's very much like of its time, and my memories of the original Pet Sematary were always that it was very scary. Like I saw it when I was like a young kid. I think a lot of people our age saw it when they were younger, so it sort of like burned into your mind that this movie is like deeply terrifying. Like so much so that I was like, oh, I don't ever really want to go back and watch it. And then like you mentioned kind of in the opening of this, I worked on the movie on the Paramount Pictures side of things and ended up shooting some content for it. And before going up to set of this new movie to shoot, I went back and I watched the original Pet Sematary again just to refresh myself with where the franchise had been. And for me, it just didn't hold up the way I remembered it. Like it just didn't have the same kind of power and draw. And I feel like the filmmakers on this newer version ended up with something that felt like way closer to my experience when I read the book. And like I read the book many years after I'd seen the film, kind of when I was going through the Stephen King catalog of like reading stuff. And actually I really like what they were able to do with this one. And I think it's a testimony to where kind of horror has come, sort of as like a medium, and like where we are with tone of things, and where we are kind of with where the genre is. It's like we're at a moment in time where I think, thanks in part a lot to producers like Jason Blum, who are kind of making some of the most interesting and original content out there, the genre's been taken very seriously again. I think that's sort of, and I think that's a cyclical thing for horror. Like it sort of goes in waves. I think there's a big moment in the 70s where horror was taken like very seriously, and when you watch things like The Shining, when people like Stanley Kubrick come in and work on it, and then it kind of dips a little bit into camp, which I also like. Yeah. But then it kind of will come back around, and we're in a window where it's taken very seriously, and because of that, you get phenomenal actors stepping into it and doing it. You know?
Now, do you think the reason it's being taken more seriously is because of like money stuff, of it like making more money, or do you see it more of the fact of like we have shows like the Netflix show of why am I blanking on the name? The not Horror on Hill House, but the
like the Haunting of Hill House.
Haunting of Hill House. That's what it's called. Yeah, like where you have a super excellent quality of show as well as a budget and that kind of stuff, like just showing up the fucking, like, the whole industry. Like, do you think it has more to do with that? Do you think the cycle has to do with a social thing or an economical thing?
I think it's always a little bit of both when you talk about entertainment, but we're in a moment in time where genre in general has never been taken more seriously than it is right now.
Yeah.
And like if you look at everything that dominates the box office, it's all genre stuff. Whether it's a Marvel movie, whether it's sci-fi stuff, whether it's horror, it's just those are the projects that are really kind of setting the world on fire. And I think because of that, it's forced filmmakers and studios, not really forced, it's encouraged everybody to treat this stuff with a lot more seriousness than they normally would. You know what I mean? It's like we sort of live in a time now where a guy like Heath Ledger's been given an Oscar for doing Batman.
Yeah.
You know, which is great and appropriate, but it just had never really happened before. So I think because of that, you've got these amazing actors, you've got these amazing filmmakers who have all been traditionally big genre fans, because I think at the end of the day, all of us who work in entertainment, it's like we're fans of all that great geeky stuff. That's kind of why we want to be in it. It's like we love Star Wars and we love comic books and we love horror movies and we love all this genre stuff. And I think there are moments in time as filmmakers where that stuff can kind of feel like your dirty little secret because other people in the industry don't really love it as much, or they don't like respect it as much, or they kind of like look down on it. And now that's the driver of popular culture. And so I think it's given everyone permission to really be involved in it in a big way who might otherwise not. There's plenty of filmmakers and actors who always love that stuff and always done it. But the stigma is off that it's somehow not as serious of an art form as other things like, I don't know, like, you know, like Oscar contender movies in the past, right? You know what I mean? It's like, it's now kind of, it feels like it's a lot more like one-to-one, and so you get this great talent coming in.
But horror, comedy, and like superhero flicks can be like
or sci-fi or whatever. So you look at movies like Arrival, which is a sci-fi movie that's just amazing and carries like a great social message. Like with it, it's like I think people are a lot more tuned into that stuff, and so it makes them open to doing projects like this.
Yeah.
And you know, and when you look at horror and stuff from just sort of a financial standpoint, those movies do tend to typically be cheaper to make. And they've got a broad audience. Yeah. And so there can be a bigger windfall of cash for movies like that, and that's part of it. But I think the overall genre acceptance is really more what it's about.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. So like you were saying, that it kind of feels like that this remake of Pet Sematary was a little bit more on brand for where we are right now, contemporary, right? So I feel that there is a big love for the campy, for the kind of like silly
for like that
type of stuff.
Kind of that 80s horror.
So do you feel that this, like, as you said, you felt like this kind of gave more credit to the actual story. But for those fans, because this is a cult classic, like that's the thing that I realized, even though that I don't remember the original, and I do need to rewatch the original. And I did think about rewatching the original before watching this movie, but I thought it'd be interesting to just like not remembering it anymore.
You mean watching it for the first time?
As an adult who could actually absorb stuff, yes. I do, like, again, I do remember little bits and pieces here and there. But again, yeah, basically, it would be watching it for the first time. Or would it be more interesting for me to, like, see it versus somebody like you who remembers the original and worked on this one? So my question is that do you feel that sometimes the nostalgic love of the campy can sometimes override the actual quality of like a contemporary shoot?
Sure. It's like nothing is ever going to take the place of your love for something from a moment of time. Like one of my, and I mean this legitimately, one of my favorite movies of all time is the 1980s Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella.
So good.
This is a movie that...
But garbage, but it's so good.
Exactly. It's like, this is a movie, and I understand this. Like, if you were to show it to someone today, and they had no affinity for He-Man, they were not, like I don't know, like I saw it when I was a kid, I saw it at the exact, like, right time, you'd watch this movie and be like,
that's true.
This is not good. And if you said that to me, I would fight you. Because I think it is excellent, and I think I think
Wait,
frankly,
like right now, if I said that, you'd fight me, or when you were a kid, you'd fight me?
at any point in time.
Oh, okay, cool,
Like,
cool.
And it's like I think Frank Langella legitimately turns in an amazing performance as Skeletor in that movie. Like it's a really great bad guy, and to me that movie is great, and you will never be able to convince me that it is not.
Mm-hmm.
And when inevitably they remake Masters of the Universe, which they're working on right now, I will see it, and I will be one of those people who grumbles their way out of the theater
yeah,
and is like,
judges the entire
and is
time.
like, this is not my Masters of the Universe. Frank Langella didn't inherit the powers of Grayskull on a set that was questionably small for the throne room of a castle.
Yeah.
Dolph Lundgren, he says his lines. He's in that movie.
He did the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. I digress. But I think it's like if you've got an affinity for that original thing, it's never going to replace it. I mean, I felt that way about Evil Dead.
Oh,
it's like
100%. So,
I love Evil Dead. I love Army of Darkness. Like I love the kind of fun campiness of all that. And I saw the remake of Evil Dead, which by the way is technically a very good movie. It's like Freddy Alvarez, who directed it, is a wonderful director, and he's directed like a lot of other movies that I like a lot. But for me, I just didn't need a really like grounded, dark, fucked up Evil Dead movie because that's Evil Dead to me.
So for somebody who did see it, were you a fan of the original?
I was.
You were.
I was I liked it very much at the time. And I'm trying to not let the fact that like I worked a little bit on this movie like color my perception of it. But I mean I enjoyed this newer version of it better. This newer version has some of my favorite people in it, like John Lithgow. But I mean for me, like Stephen King is one of, if not my favorite author of all time. Yeah. And like for me, he's like anytime that subject comes up, I'm like, look, it doesn't matter if you like horror or not. What that guy is able to do with character development is unreal. I mean, he's so gifted and he's so prolific. There's such a huge love for Stephen King, like in me, and it's so greatly colored, like my work and the way I try to like approach storytelling and what I know about storytelling, that like kind of no matter what, Stephen King's gonna have like a big get out of jail free card with me. But I think this movie's great and like a really great representation of that book. And I thought the changes they made are smart, and it just, I don't know, I really liked it. And I really liked working on it. And because I'm such a big Stephen King fan, like going into it, I was ready to be skeptical, but I was lucky enough to be involved in the process to a small degree, and I just felt like they did it right.
We should probably just edit that clip to be the entire video, because that was a very good synopsis and like a presentation of the movie. Because I mean I wish I could do better justice to the movie, but I just felt a little let down. John Lithgow was fucking amazing. I love that man. You are so lucky to work with that man. Can you tell us a story about working with that guy?
Sure. Okay, so what Ruthann's talking about, and kind of the reason that I'm sitting here next to her talking about this today is...
not just because of the story, because I love him and he's been one of my closest friends for the last 12 years, so don't let that fool you.
But mostly because of this.
But mostly because of this? No,
so
just talk.
For a number of years, I've done creative content for Paramount Pictures. And kind of what that means is I was basically like an in-house creative, like writing and directing and a lot of times producing like promos, commercials, music videos, behind-the-scenes stuff, in-world pieces of content for the studio's full slate of films. And I was lucky enough to get to work on Pet Sematary and went up on set and shot a whole bunch of promos for it. And I was also lucky enough to shoot a short film with John Lithgow, like in character as Judd, telling a really famous story from the book that there just wasn't quite room for, like in the feature. I don't want to say too much about it because you gotta buy the Blu-ray when it comes out. It's gonna be on the Blu-ray.
Okay, guys, go buy the Blu-ray.
So it's
just kidding.
There.
Our sponsor is Paramount.
Yeah,
go buy the Blu-ray.
I've been really fortunate to work with John Lithgow on a few occasions. he was in one of the Daddy's Home movies that Paramount did, and so I was able to shoot with John a couple of times then, and then do a lot more with him on this film. And in addition to just being my favorite actor that I've ever worked with, John Lithgow is the nicest, warmest, like most inviting human being I've maybe ever met, and is such a sweet guy that when you, it makes it all the more remarkable that he's able to play villains as convincing as he has been. And John has humored me on numerous occasions, asking him questions about, like, so in Cliffhanger, when you and Stallone are like hanging off of that mountain on that helicopter, and it's always sweet about like answering those questions, and just getting the chance to work with John in this movie as that character at a time, like during production when he was so dialed into it. It's a level of actor that you seldom ever get to see, and he completely transforms and is just so nuanced and wonderful and is in complete command of his craft.
So
and,
good.
And made my job so easy. Like, the truth of the matter is if I'd never spoken to John, like on set, he would have been great. The fact that he was so inviting to come in and work with me and really dig into this and build out a pretty nuanced, creepy short film, which you'll see on the Blu-ray when you buy it, and I know everyone will buy it.
When you buy it.
It's pretty great. Like, I mean, I can't say enough good things about John. I mean, like, he's just great.
Like, for me, the first time I remember John Lithgow was actually Henry and the Hendersons. Right? Harry and the Hendersons. That's what it was.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking movie. It's great.
That I remember, and then so basically I saw him mostly comedic roles, right? And then, as you mentioned, Cliffhanger. So for me, it's so funny. That is a very like poignant movie for me in my childhood because I don't remember.
Because you were spending a lot of time on cliffs at the time.
Well, you know, I grew up on mountains. It's what we do.
Sure.
No, that's not the reason. But when I was a kid, Macintosh computers were very new, and there was this thing called KidPix. And do you remember this? It was like the Photoshop of like that era, and like that's what you use to draw and like make all these pictures and all this kind of stuff. And I was not allowed to watch Cliffhanger because I was too young. So I remember literally like, and I think my dad still has this KidPix picture. I swear to God, Dad, if you watch this and post it, I will be so happy because I know he has it. He has it still somewhere.
It's an eerily lifelike portrait of John Lithgow.
Yeah, no, it's not John Lithgow. It's Stallone just literally hanging off of a cliff. Like I was not good at nuance. Like that was literally what it was.
I'm 90% sure that's how that movie was pitched in the room.
Yeah, it was that. I mean,
Stallone might have
it probably
gone
should have been the poster.
Stallone might have gone in with that drawing. And they were like, what do you want to do next? And he's like, I don't know what you guys think about this.
Hang off a cliff.
And just sort of slid that across the table. And people were like, I don't understand. And then he wrote the word cliffhanger on a dry erase board. And they were like, get out of here, just start shooting. Just go. Go start shooting now.
Right now.
Go. Get Rennie Harlan.
So that was the first time I ever saw him as like the villain, because I knew him from, like I said, Harry and the Hendersons, and then Third Rock from the Sun. And that was the first time that I realized that comedic actors are the best actors. Because there's nothing harder than comedy, and they can play the best villains ever. Because I'm sorry, the moment that Killmonger arrived with his girlfriend, I was like, there's going to be a moment just like in Cliffhanger. And sure enough, that's what happened. Because like that is such a defining like villain character of being just so charming, so this, and has like the girlfriend, whatever, and it's like, nope, don't need her. Like, I do what I want.
It's pretty good. Like the first time I worked with John on Daddy's Home, there was basically a moment where I became Chris Farley in that Saturday Night Live sketch where I was like, you remember in Cliffhanger when you guys are in that airplane and like your dude's been shot and your other person is like, he's hurt pretty bad, what should we do? And you go get him to a hospital fast, and then you kicked him out of the airplane. John was like, yeah. And I was like, pretty great.
That was
and he was like, oh, good. Thank you.
That was
No,
awesome.
it's like, no, he's great. I mean, he can do anything. Like, he's great. I can't say enough good things about John Lithgow. This suddenly just became John's
Let's tell the
podcast.
story of John Lithgow. 'Cause
Totally.
he's
That
the
should be a
best.
whole separate episode just talking about how great he is and how he can be the Trinity Killer in Dexter, and he can be Winston Churchill in The Crown, and he can also be the bad guy in Santa Claus the movie, which if you've never seen, you should check it out.
You
Dudley
really
Moore's an
need
elf.
to. It's so good.
It's pretty out there.
It's very good and very fun. Just
I'm sorry, John, to wrap up talking about how great of an actor you are with the Santa Claus movie.
yeah, that's not fair. But he's fucking incredible, and
But
that's the thing is that like even when this movie first starts, it takes you all even to recognize him. That's how good of an actor he is.
Yeah.
Like there's that whole joke about Gary Oldman is like, you know, when you've been living your life and then like a second later you like die and then turn to the camera and suddenly you realize
Right.
that you've been Gary Oldman the whole time. That's how good of actor he is. That's the same thing with like Lithgow. Like
It's
he's
great.
incredible.
It's great. I cannot say enough good things about him. I would do anything for John. He's awesome.
All right, if you're going to give a star review of this movie, what would the star review be?
A stars.
1 out of 10.
1 out of 10.
Yes.
I like this movie. I would give it a 9. I think it came together really well. I think it delivers on the premise of the
Okay,
book.
so as a movie, as just all told,
Yeah,
9 out of 10.
I would give it a 9 out of 10. I liked it a lot.
As a horror movie compared to the original, would you give the same
10.
review?
10 out of 10.
Oh,
10 out of 10.
damn.
Like without hesitation. Like if we're listen, and it's a no offense to the original movie.
Well, no.
That movie's
I mean,
good. It
It
has
was
its
also
moment in
done
time.
like, what, 30 years ago?
For me, this new version of it works better, and it is not just because I was able to work on the marketing.
What I do like about this movie is that it didn't force stars into it. Do you know what I mean? Like John
Yeah.
Lithgow is incredible, but he's very subtle in the whole thing. The same with the lead actor and his wife and the kids. Like it feels very like, oh, this is some dude who
Mhm.
hired. Obviously, the lead actor has been in a shit ton of stuff, but like it felt not as like,
Mm-hmm.
look at this guy. You've
No, I
seen him in
agree.
everything.
No, I agree.
Like,
It's
love
like-
his stuff.
Everyone feels well cast and like can handle
Yeah.
their parts. And before we like totally wrap up, I also just want to give a huge shout out to the creative advertising executive on this movie at Paramount. Is a guy named Nick Vandermeer,
Mm-hmm.
who is awesome. Nick's super smart. He's got great creative chops. And I thought the campaign that he crafted for this movie was just fantastic. It's like the teaser gave you everything that needed to have happen. It's like the subsequent trailers and TV spots just got you into the rhythm of this movie and got everybody pumped up for it. And it was just really great. And I feel like a lot of times, again, I've worked in marketing for a number of years, so I'm a little bit biased.
No.
But like, I feel like a lot of times, like, people like Nick do not get their sort of just
Enough
deserves
credits,
when
yeah.
it comes to this stuff. It's really hard to market a horror movie and make a horror movie feel scary and feel cool and feel interesting without giving everything away. And I just thought this campaign was like super, super successful and was like really impressed with it. And I think people were as well. I mean, people showed up for this movie. This movie's done well. It's been received well by kind of everyone who's seen it. And I think it's a real testimony to the work that Nick did on this.
Yeah,
So, good job, Nick Vandermeer.
Yes, especially for something that had such a cult following. Like I don't remember the movie at all. I know I saw it, but I don't remember anything. But I do know that there's such a huge cult following for it. Like you've heard nothing about like anything else but the Pet Sematary, this or the other. So as somebody who remembers the movie, read the books and all that kind of stuff, like and also worked on this movie, it's great to hear that you promote this. So everybody go see this movie. It is fun and all that kind of stuff. Like I know I sound very reserved because I don't watch horror movies outside of
It was
October.
super cool to see a Pet Sematary movie for the first time with RuthAnn, who had never seen a Pet Sematary movie before
Right.
or read the book.
Uh,
To be in there.
that'd be
Feels
perfect.
like a good ending.
And cut scene.
People listen to us talk long enough.
Yes. So, guys, let us know what you thought. I'm honestly going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's not my favorite of the horror movies, but again, I don't remember. I didn't see whatever the first movie. So, I just, as a movie, it it did really, okay, here's what it did really well, is it does hit the creepiness of children, because that's the thing that always hits me the worst in horror movies, is integrating children into it, because that just fucks me up. I don't know why, that just ruins me every time. The thing that did bother me is there are times that they did it right, where the mom was just like, I know shit is wrong, like, no, I'm not okay. But there's other times where I was like, well, if you're a mom, you just take the little boy and fucking go. Like, sorry, like, fuck your undead child, fuck the dad, get the F out of there. Like,
it's so weird
done.
because "fuck your undead child" was the original tagline for the movie,
Oh,
but it
cool.
didn't test as well as we were
Really?
hoping it would.
Shocking.
It felt too on the nose, ultimately.
But guys, thank you so much for joining for this. Comment what your star rating would be. His was, what, 10 out of 10? 9 out of 10.
10 out of 10 for the remake, 9 out of 10 as a movie. I thought
All
it was
right.
really good.
Yeah, I'm a hard 7 out of 10 on both accounts. That's just me. Let us know what your rating is. We're going to be back for our Game of Theories on Monday. So,
I won't be. Chris will be back.
yeah, well, I mean, you'll be in the vicinity, but you're not actually going to be on the screen for that. We're not going to film you for that. But I'm very excited for this next one. So join us on Monday. We're going to post it 9 a.m. PST. That is noon EST for all you guys on the East Coast. Love you. Thank you. We'll see you next week.